F100 Nation, Episode 7, Shan and his build, Green Machine. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Got a really exciting podcast for you today. Got on the line with Shan talking about his build, Green Machine. It's a pretty sentimental build. I'm really excited to be able to get to share this with you guys. He's a great guy. Had a lot of fun chatting with him. Before we hop into the podcast, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, the Performance Syndicate. They have parts, apparel, all kinds of goodies. Go check them out, thepsco.com. They're doing a truck giveaway right now, so head over, grab some gear, support those guys that support us, and help this keep rocking. So we'll hop in the podcast. All right, guys, so we're joined by Shan. We're going to chat a little bit about his build, Green Machine, get to know him a little bit. Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Man, hey, thank you. I've been listening for 6 weeks. It's cool to hear all these guys talk about the story of the trucks. It's real neat.
Definitely. And, I know you've got a pretty unique story with your truck, but definitely want to know, a little bit more about you. I know, you've got a body shop and do a few different things. So why don't we start out there? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I own a body shop, Shan's Paint and Body. And, of course, man, I've been doing this good while now, about over 20 years. So I've been in the business a long time. I've owned my own shop. I think 14 years, I think, is where I'm at, maybe getting close to going on 15. It's funny how it kind of all runs together after a point in time. But, man, we're into all kind of cool stuff. We've stepped over into the restoration world. And, believe it or not, looking at my truck, we love a lift kit, man. We put a lot of lift kits on, light bars. We'll do just about anything. Of course, we're like most every other body shop. Insurance work is our bread and butter. But, hey, we're not afraid to make a truck cool if that's what somebody wants.
Well, definitely need that, man. That's awesome. So, tell me a little bit, I chatted a little bit about what you had going on with Colton, and he told me that, your truck and your build has a pretty cool story. And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's a lengthy story, but I think we've got time. So the story of the Green Machine, my truck, it's a 79 Ford F-150 that my daddy bought new. But the story really begins on a December night back in 1978. And what it was, he had a black 76 Ford F100, four-wheel drive, four-speed truck, 360 engine. And, of course, we do a good bit of hunting, fishing, all that stuff. We're from the South, man. We like that kind of stuff. And, of course, he had been to the deer camp one night I think that day, if I remember correctly, he went up there that day and was coming back that night. And him and my uncle were together. And, of course, a friend and my first cousin, my uncle's son, was in the truck behind them. And as my dad and my uncle were headed to the house, not very far away, they met a car head on. And the truck sat up a little bit off the ground like most of them did. The car hits him, knocks the front end out from under this 76 model truck. Skids, hits a ditch bank, and it's end over end 5 times. Of course, when all this happens, my cousin and the guy behind him, they don't really know what to expect at this point. They've just seen this truck tumble through the air. And, of course, they stop, and my cousin jumps out. I think he runs to the house that's right there and, of course, calls 911. And the guy behind him, they always called him Fuzz. His name was Jerry Agent, but they always called him Fuzz. And, he went down there not really knowing what to expect. And when he gets down there, my daddy's always said he knew he was in trouble because he said when it stopped rolling, he tried to climb out the windshield and said he kind of raised up and he fell back down in the seat. When he gets down there, and of course, his jugular's been cut, got a broke jaw, broke hands. He's broke up pretty good. So Fuzz takes his shirt off and shoves it in his neck to try to kind of slow the bleeding down till the ambulance can get there. Story gets a little emotional from time to time, but at this point right here, they take him to the hospital. Well, Jerry and my first cousin and my uncle is fine. What's funny about the whole thing, my daddy took all the licks. My uncle, I think, walked away with like a broken collarbone. But they both leave in the ambulance. Jerry and my first cousin come to the house. And I always remember my mama saying she knew by the boots on the car porch that it wasn't my daddy. So, of course, they meet him at the, she meets him at the door, and first thing she says is, where's Jarvis? And they say, oh, he's okay, he's fine. She said, no, if he was fine, he'd be here. Where's he at? Well, they proceed to tell him, and, of course, she's a young mother at this time. I'm 4.5. My brother's 6 months old. It's kind of a bad deal. And she lost her dad when she was very, very young, too. So just kind of a little emotional right there at that point for her. So, but the problem is we live in a neighborhood and we got good neighbors, but she feels like, hey, I've got nobody to keep my boys. Now, I don't know where everybody else's faith is at, but, I know where mine's at. And she said, the only one I got to call is my mama. And my grandmother lived about a quarter mile up the road. She didn't live far from us. And, but the problem was she was always at church on a Sunday night. So, but my mother says, I'll call her anyway. And she calls, she makes that phone call, and my grandmother answered. And she says, I can't believe you're home. And she said, well, my mother's name is Paulette. She said, Paulette, I was sitting in church on the pew, and something told me I better get to the house. And her and my grandfather got up and walked out of the middle of church, a little Pentecostal church just right down the road from where they lived. Anyway, she gets up and walks out and comes home. Well, of course, she comes and stays with us through probably the better part of the night. I can't really remember on that. I was pretty young. But, of course, he makes a recovery. Not really for sure if he's going to live or not. They didn't really give a lot of hope when he left our local hospital going somewhere else, but pulled through. He was young at the time, fresh out of the Marine Corps, so he had some things kind of going for him that gave him a will to live, I guess. But once he healed up, they wired his mouth shut for his broke jaw, but once he healed up, he's in need of another truck. So he decides he's going to order him a brand new pickup. So he goes to the dealership and he orders him a 79 Ford. It was green, of course, in color. The color that is on the truck is the factory color. The deal with it, though, is, of course, that was back before the days of clear coats and those things that you've got now to bring it out. And now I actually forgot one part, and I need to back up just a minute because it's going to be relevant a little later on in the story. Now, when he wrecked, I'm sorry about this, but when he wrecked, the highway patrol calls a wrecker. And we've got a real good friend. I've actually worked for him, Fox's Body Shop, at one point in my life, but very close friends of ours. Matter of fact, to give you an idea how close, Britt, the dad, the owner at that point in time, was actually my mom and dad's witness. So that kind of give you the idea how close we were. But the highway patrol calls and says, hey, I've got we need you to bring 2 wreckers, we've got a black Ford four-wheel drive that front end's knocked out from under. We're going to need 2 wreckers to get this truck. So he jumps in his wrecker, runs up the road to his dad's house. Of course, at the time was actually running the shop, and says, "Hey, we got to go." Said Jarvis has had a wreck. And he said, "How you know?" He said, "Man, they said it was a black Ford four-wheel drive, and he's the only one that I know got one." So, of course, they get out there, and it was my daddy's four-wheel drive. That's just part of the story that kind of needs to be told, too. So he gets this green four-wheel drive after he buys it, gets it home. He orders this thing with a 400 C6 automatic transmission for 11 years. Put a sway bar under the front. He talked about the older four-wheel drives being kind of hard to handle once you put some big tires on them back then. So he put a sway bar under the front of his and brings it home. Of course, man, first thing he does, I think, day one, I'm not 100%, but pretty close to right. First thing goes on this thing is a brand new set of 36-inch Grand Prix mutters. If you remember, they were real wide, kind of a wider tire, good-looking wheel. Of course, they were on a white spoke wheel, And this was his daily driver. I mean, we hunted, we fished out of it, just whatever we had to do, it was his daily driver. That's what he drove every day back in the day. And it was an Explorer truck, just an option Ford had. It had the hood ornament Explorer in the center, and, of course, it had the logos on the bed, that said Explorer. So, and he keeps it, I guess, about 6 years, roughly, something like that. Of course, now my daddy's kind of a clean freak, and that green four-wheel drive ain't clean in pictures just by accident. It's wiped on all the time. So there's people that just constantly are after him. Will you sell it? Will you sell it? Will you sell it? And, of course, at times they catch him. He's like, "Yeah, I'll sell it." And, of course, when they try to come get it, "Nah, it ain't for sale. I ain't going to sell it." Well, there was one guy in our community that had just stayed after him. And this little show had went on for a while. Now, my daddy always blamed this on my mama. So she finally told him one day, said, "Now, Jarvis, if you're going to tell that man you'll sell that truck, you sell him that pickup truck." So got a little aggravated at her, and he told him, he said, "Pat, if you want this truck, come on and get it." And for me, I'm a kid that I've rode shotgun in this truck so many times that, man, I can't even count them. And it's just, it is no doubt where I got my love for four-wheel drive trucks. And I'm a four-wheel drive guy. Everything I own is four-wheel drive except my wife's Mustang outside. That's the only thing that I got four-wheel drive. So I'm just that type of guy, And so he sells it. And as a kid, I remember standing at the storm door of our house, and I watch it drive off. And, it's like I know this will sound crazy to some, but it's like, man, like a part of you just drove off. I was not happy. I was not happy about it. So at this point, the truck just kind of disappears. Within the next year or so, the guy that bought it from us kept it about 2 years, and then he passed it on to somebody else, and the truck disappears. I have no clue where it's at. My daddy's got no clue where it's at. It's gone. Now, the funny thing about it is it's not but about 30 miles down the road, and we just didn't know it. And so I get into body work back in about 95. I had gotten married and hadn't been married long, got into body work, started doing this, and this guy drives up one night at the body shop where I'm working there late one evening. And, man, we're talking and just kind of, I don't know the guy, but I'm meeting him and learning him. And he starts talking about this truck. And the more he says, the more I'm like, that sounds like my daddy's four-wheel drive. And I finally asked him, I said, "Did you buy that truck from Pat Green?" He said, "I sure did." I said, that's my daddy's four-wheel drive. So all of a sudden it's located. I mean, years have went by. Well, I say years, probably about a 9-10 year period has went by that we don't have any idea where it's at. So still, though, time passes. And another 12 years pass. Now, I'm in the body business at this point in time, and I'm fixing wrecks, and I love cool stuff. And we've drag raced, man. We drag raced for years and still love that, too. I've got a passion for that. But I look around, and I'm like, I've never built anything for me. I've never took the time to build me anything that means something to me. Now, going back to the man that went and picked up the truck the night it was wrecked, me and his son are very good friends, and he's named after his dad, except they call him Britty instead of Brett. And we're very, very close friends, have been pretty much our whole life. And, of course, I worked for them for several years there at their body shop. We're talking one Sunday. And the more we talk, we get to talk about that truck and several other trucks. They got cool stuff running out their ears, you know. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get that four-wheel drive. And I knew about where it was at. Just had been down this road before, and a guy mentioned something about it. And, of course, by this time I've learned who owns it and kind of where they're from. So, man, I hightail. It's a Sunday afternoon. I strike out. I'm going to get this truck. So I drive up in a driveway that I think is their home, and come to find out it was. And a little girl is standing in the driveway playing. I say a little girl. She was young, not very old. And I step out of the truck, and I said, have y'all got a green 79 Ford four-wheel drive around here? She said, we sure do, but it ain't for sale. I said, I called the gentleman's name. I said, is he at home? She said, yeah. I said, well, can I talk to him? And she says, yeah. So I walk around the house, and his wife is standing there, and we talk a few minutes, and she's like, yeah, that's the truck. You're right. So we rock on. He comes outside, and we begin to talk. And, of course, I tell him my reason for wanting the truck. I said it's a sentimental value thing to me. I said my daddy bought this truck new, and it meant a lot to him. You know, there's a lot of regret on selling this truck. I mean, this was probably something he would have never sold if he could have got past that day. Probably. I mean, it's just something he never got rid of. So now, in the process of this, my daddy has no idea that I'm trying to find this truck. So me and this gentleman talked for a little while outside, and I said, well, do you mind if I just take a look at it? I said, for all I know, it's rusted down, and I don't even want it. No, you can't go look at that truck. And he was just kind of, this was a type man that they drove something till it quit. When it quit, they drug it to the side. They went and bought something else, but they did not sell what they had just quit running. That's just kind of how they were. So I tell him, okay. We talk a little bit longer, and he says, well, what will you give me for that old truck? And I said, well, seeing how I've not looked at it yet, I'll give you $2,000 for it, sight unseen. Man, let me tell you something. I thought I was going to fight him to get out of there. Man, he showed out. You're just like everybody else. You're trying to take something of mine. No, sir, I'm not. I promise you. I'll pay you for it. I just need to look at it first. So we go on with this story, and I just tell him, I said, you know where my shop's at? And he was familiar with it. I said, if you change your mind, let me know. Now, there's several men that live in that area that I know. And I quizzed them. I said, man, try to help me get this truck. And they do. And, of course, I'm going to tell you, everywhere is a dead end. Everywhere is a dead end. He will not budge. But he wasn't in the best of health. And a couple of years passed from that point, now from this meeting, and I get a call one day, and somebody had told me that he had passed away. And he'd actually been dead for several months. I just didn't know it. That afternoon, I was back out there. So I drive up and knock on the door, and his wife meets me at the door again. And I begin to tell her who I am. And she says, I know who you are. And she said, I started to call you the other day and say, if you want this truck, come get it. You know, and at that point, man, it was like, yes. I mean, you could just, I was like, no doubt. So I said, well, can I? Now, of course, I didn't show that emotion to her, but I said, well, do you mind if I go look at it? And I said, just let me make sure it's the truck first. Let me make sure it's the truck I'm looking for. And she said, yeah, go ahead. It's right down there. But I mean, it was nowhere from the house the time I was out there. You know, and you start walking down there, and when I make a little curve, there it's at. And it's that. And there's a picture of it on my Instagram page of the day we picked it up. But of course, that's exactly what it looked like the day I saw it too. You know, I walked down there, and there it sits. It's on 4 flat tires. Got a set of chrome wheels on it. Matter of fact, maybe the same tires my daddy had on it. I don't know. They had been on there for a while. But I walked in, there was 2 things about the truck that I knew would separate it from anything else. And right before he got rid of it, he had recovered the seat, and it was velour, and that center piece of the seat was in green vinyl. It was green velour, and that centerpiece was just in green vinyl. And of course, back in the day, these trucks didn't come with tow hooks on them. Mm-hmm. So going back to Fuzz Agent, the same man that shoved a shirt in his neck, he was also a welder. And of course, you know, we hunted, we fished. I mentioned that early on. That was just a part of our life. And they had welded about a 1/4-inch steel piece of plate under it and took 2 chain link hooks, like they would be on the end of a chain, and welded into that plate to put tow hooks in the front. So those were the 2 things I was looking for. And I walk down there, and the first thing I see is the seat. And I walk around to the front, and I look under it, and there was in tow hooks.
No way.
At that moment, you know, it's like seeing an old friend that you hadn't seen in a long, long time. That won't mean a lot to somebody that's not a car guy. But for me, it was, I found you. You know, I mean, it was just that kind of moment. So I walk back up to the house, and we talk a little bit. And, you know, the truck has been sitting. Now, this is the significant part about it. The truck has been sitting where it's at for 15 years, untouched. And I quiz her. I'm like, how did he get down there? What happened? And there's quite a length of story to how it got to there. But at the end of the day, they pulled it down there, cut the key off, and walked away from it and never cranked it again. The inspection sticker at the time on it said 1992. So that was and this was 2007. So 15 years, it had sat in one spot.
Wow.
So how much will you take for it? Well, she don't know at the time. She said, let me think about it a minute, but if I sell it, I'll sell it to you. And I said, okay. So I gave her a couple of days, called her back, we talked. She said, what do you give me for it? I said, well, I give you $2,000 for it like it sits. Nope, it ain't moving for $2,000. Of course, she knew I wanted it. So she had me over the barrel right there. I said, all right, what's it going to take? And my daddy didn't know this part for a long time. But I said, what's it going to take? She said, $3,500. Now, I want to tell you something. This truck's sitting on 4 flat tires. It won't even think about cranking. There is a rat's nest growing under the hood like you ain't never seen. And I paid her. Because, you know, for me, it was a sentimental piece. It was, hey, this is my daddy's truck. So there's things that I look at that, you know what, hey, a few coins, man, you can't separate that. Now, my daddy knows nothing about this. Keep in mind, I mean, this has been probably, I guess, the best kept secret I've ever had in my life. My mama knew about it, but we ain't talked about it a lot. All I asked her was, I said, please don't tell Daddy anything about this. And she said, okay. Now, so when it comes time to go get this truck, there's only one person that can go get this truck for me. And I feel like you know who I'm fixing to say. But that's Brett Fox. The same man that went and got the black one the night he wrecked. That man's still driving a wrecker. He's in the other side of his 60s now, but he's still driving a rollback picking up wrecks. But for me, there's nobody else that can go get this truck. So we load up, man, we strike out. Now look, he's a kid at heart. This man can do things with a model car like you've never seen. And I mean, he's just got an imagination that's out of this world, but he's as excited as I am about going to get this truck. And of course he tells me, he said, I wouldn't have let you let anybody else go get this truck but me. But we're back down there and we pick this truck up, load this thing on the rollback. I pay her. And man, we're out of there. And I mean, at this point, I've got it. It's mine now. So we get it home, throw a little air in the tire. Believe it or not, they air up. I guess they had been so stuck to them wheels. They aired up for a little while anyway. So we take a few pictures of it. We have an event around here where I live in Neshoba County, and if you ought to Google this or look it up on the internet. But it's called the Neshoba County Fair. And Neshoba County Fair. And we live at this fairgrounds for 8 days. We all got fair cabins, or there's 600 plus fair cabins there and 500 plus camping spots. And this thing is huge, man. You just need to look it up. I could tell that's another story in itself. But the day I pick this truck up is the day this event starts. So I get the truck, it's at my shop, I got the keys to it, and it's sitting there. So I get out there to our cabin at the fairgrounds, and there's the neighbor next to us. Of course, he knew this truck as well as I did, and this truck was very popular. I mean, around our town. People knew this truck. So I'm showing him a picture of it. I said, look what I got today, and he's kind of back and forth with me. You know, Daddy, I mean, he knew nothing about me even trying to do all this other, but he's like, is that it? I said, that's it right there. My daddy walks to me, he said, what are y'all looking at? And I said, well, check this out right here. I said, look what Britt bought by my shop today. And he looks at it, he's like, that looks like my truck. But he said, nah, that ain't going to be my truck right there. And I said, look at it real good. And he looked at it, he said, that's not going to be my truck right there. I said, that's your truck. He said, that's it right there? I said, that's it. He said, where's it at? I said, my shop. Now, the next words out of his mouth are this: that was not for sale. No, that was not for sale right there. So at this point in time, this truck sat so long, I'm like, I don't even know if it's going to turn over. I don't know what this thing's going to do. So I go up there and I pour some Marvel's Mixture Oil down in the cylinders, put the plugs back in it, and just let it sit for several days. Man, next thing you know, me and the guy that was working for me, we try to turn it over. Man, that thing spin over. So we put a hot battery to it. We going to see what it'll do. Man, it sat there and would turn over. I mean, it would just spin. So we snatched the carburetor off of it and rebuild the carburetor, rig up an old gas line, old plastic tub, because the gas tank is no good in it. And we're going to see if this thing will fire. Man, that thing cranked. I mean, I was blown away. I didn't figure it'd ever crank. But now, in the process of this, I think I put a new brain box on it, plugs and wires, just gave it a mild tune-up, I guess you could say. But it actually cranked. Now, after it cranked, I'm for sure that it's not going to move. Valve body's got to be stuck in it. It's been sitting 15 years. Man, forget it. that sucker would go reverse, first, second, whatever you wanted it to do. So we get the brakes rebuilt on it, and our plan initially was to get it going, and we're gonna have a good time with it. These old trucks, they'd sling mud treetop high, and then there'd be that pause after you got off the gas, and you'd hear that mud boom, 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 falling on the roof of them old cabs, them old trucks,
Uh-huh.
Our plan was, hey, we're going to have a good time with it for a little bit, before we do anything with it. That never happened. I got it to a point where it's like any of them. If you ever start on it, there's no ending. I mean, you've started on it, So, man, the next thing I know, I got this thing stripped down, nothing but the axles and the front end. And it's in 1,000 pieces. And, of course, my daddy looks at me. You just have to kind of know him. He says, "Are you sure you can put this thing back together?" I said, "I took it apart, didn't I?" And so do a few things for the motor. For me, my vision of the truck was I'm an old school guy. These 73 to 79 Fords, to me, I'm an old school guy. I like the old school look. I wanted the chrome wheels. I wanted big tires, and it had to be jacked up. So, called Skyjacker, ordered a 9-inch lift for it. I already knew what kind of tire I was going to run because Super Swamper was the only one that made a tire that had that old school look, that TSL bias. So, and I wanted a 40-inch tire. That was just another thing that I had to have. So, man, I take it down, and we get all the body down to bare metal, and we start bringing it back. Now, for me, and I guess some of this maybe is just being in the body shop world, I was not going to be satisfied with aftermarket metal. I wanted true 73 to 79 metal.
Thicker.
I bought 5 trucks. Because it took 5 trucks to get true metal. Because this had sat for so long, we start looking at it, and it's too far gone. There's pieces that they're just too far gone. Now, a lot of people would think this is foolish, but I had to try to save as much of my truck as I could. And I clipped the cab on it. Now, I could have easily put a good cab on it, but that wasn't going to be good enough for me. So I had to have a piece of my truck on this thing. So I clipped the cab, and we threw the back half of it away, kept the cowl on the firewall and all that stuff. But every piece of it ended up being true Ford metal. So everything you see on my green truck is it. Now, Dennis Carpenter, of course, some know this, some don't. I was surprised that some didn't know this, but, he bought all of Ford dies for those trucks. So your grill shell and several things that you see are true Ford dies in making that. So my grill shell and several of those pieces come from Dennis Carpenter. Got a few things from LMC like door rubbers and window seals and, those type things, come from LMC. And, of course, we start putting it back together. It's a 5-year period. I'd work on it a little bit, and then I'd park it, and then I'd work on it a little bit more, and I'd park it again. And, and just over time, and I think my daddy actually gave up on it a couple of times. He didn't know if I was ever going to get through with it for him. So rock on a little bit longer, and we start getting to the end process. And the last piece that really meant a lot to me, and I don't know if you know this or not, but those trucks used to come on the hubs, they said Ford. It was a Warren hub, but they said Ford.
Mm-hmm.
That meant a lot to me. I got to have a set of them. And in my brain, I'm thinking there is a set of those hubs somewhere in the United States that have never been put on a truck. And I've searched with no luck. some guy up around your area, I don't know who it was. I hope he's listening to this podcast when it comes on and is able to get up with me. But I did a Google search right at the very end of this build. It's painted. It's pretty much together. And I do a Google search, and, man, there's a brand-new set on eBay. But the kicker to it is they fit a Dana 60, which will not fit my truck.
Yep.
But I decide I'm going to call this guy anyway. And I do. And we talk a few minutes, and he says, yeah, what I've got on eBay won't fit your truck, but I do have a set in a box that'll fit yours. I said, you're kidding. He said, no. And he said, I've had about 5 sets, but I've got 1 set left that'll fit your truck. I paid a pretty penny for them. I gave him $300 for that set of hubs, but they meant that much to me on this build. So he sends them to me, and I've still got the Fomaco box. They come in, but I've got the original 1979 whatever hubs in that truck that says Ford on it. And, man, pretty much that gets to where that's about it. We get it up and going and start showing it, and it's clean and it's slick. And, you know, I blocked every body piece on that thing, I think, 5 times. That was kind of my goal. I said, okay, if I block it 5 times, so I'd block it, reprime it, block it, reprime it. And I've done that about 5 times. And, of course, you know, that's where the key is to getting that body slick, is in the blocking. So, in the body work too, but, you know, you want your body work right, but once your body work gets right, that blocking will slick one on out. And that's pretty much what I've done. When I got it fixed and got it built, you know, for me, the only right thing to do was give it back to it. So now in this process, he donated funds to this thing too. I don't want you to think it was all out of my pocket, but he threw some money at it too. But of course, the labor and all that didn't cost him anything. And of course I bought a bunch too. And you have to kind of know my daddy. He can squeeze a dime and get 11 pennies out of it. You know, so when we start building this truck, I said, don't get that notepad out. We're not keeping up with what it costs. It's what it is. We got to get this thing finished. But when we got through with it, for me, the right thing to do was to give it back. And I gave it back to him, and today it's titled in his name. And it's his truck all over again.
Man, that's cool.
It's a long story. I probably, there's a lot to it, but there's just a lot that has not been told through the years of it being going, you know, because you can't write all that down on Instagram and Facebook, you know. Yeah,
well, I mean, and it shows that you got, I mean, the true passion's there, and, you know, the rightful owner has got it back in his hands, and someday it'll be in your hands again. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of passion there. It's really, really, really neat to hear.
Well, no doubt, and it was, I said it the whole time, it was a labor of love. And I've enjoyed these podcasts, hearing these guys, Colton talk, and these other guys, and, you know, every one of them kind of start out the same way. How'd you get into these trucks? Well, my dad had one.
I stared at that dashboard.
Do what now?
Riding around in the front seat of that truck, staring at that dashboard.
Man, there ain't no doubt. Them old country songs coming out of them old speakers. That's just, that's it, man. I mean, that was it. And, you know, for me as a kid, you know, now, like I said, we keep something clean around our place. But, you know, if we were hunting, or we done a lot of fishing, and of course trying to get back there to these old these old spots to put that little John boat in, you know, you have to have something to get you back there. For me, man, there was nothing as a kid that excited me any more than when he had to fall out of that thing and lock him hubs in, because I'm telling you, I knew we were going to get it on at that point. And, you know, those were the kind of things that excited me, you know. And it's just memories that never will fade away. And I'm not going to lie to you, man. I'm a car guy. I love them. I love trucks, cars. I love old stuff. But I can't walk in that shop and look at it and not grin at it when I look at it, because it means that much knowing that it's back. And, that it's a part of our family again. And I got 2 girls. I don't have any boys. Of course, my youngest one has probably got the strongest passion for that truck. And I said something to her one day, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do one day when I give this truck to one of y'all. I don't know if I'm going to give it to Lakin or you. And Brianna let me know that it better be her that was getting it.
She's already laid claim. She says,
man, she right. Hey, if I get in that thing, she's about going to get in there with me, and we're going to bust a loop. And, of course, it's kind of aggravating to get in and out of, because I didn't want steps. That was another thing. I didn't want no steps on that thing, but and it don't have any, but it's a handful to get in, but it's fun to drive. We get it out. Of course, in better weather than what we're having right now in our area. But, we get it out, and, man, we run it down the road and take car shows and just enjoy it. And it means a lot to our family. And, of course, it means a lot to my dad to have it back. He's not going to tell you a whole lot, but, money, it's like I've told a bunch of people, and I've had people ask, man, would you sell that truck? Sure won't. Money can't buy it. Don't have a price. And I've learned a long time ago, you don't put a price on it, because that's when somebody give you something for it. But yeah. I just always tell them it don't have a price.
Well, glad it made it home. Sounds like you're treating it right and just enjoying it like it should be. So it's really cool.
Well, like I said, it was fun. Of course, it's kind of flown by now. It's built and up and going, and there's always something you could tinker with and do to it to make it a little more yours. And I kind of hope one day. I'm not a big fan of that 400 engine. No offense to anybody that is, but I'm not a huge fan. But I hope someday to put a Coyote in it. I think a Coyote would fit well in that thing. Of course, I'm one of them that I don't want to give up a lot. And, of course, at that point, you kind of need to upgrade the transmission and kind of put the modern-day transmission. But I'm sure somewhere out there somebody makes an adapter that'll hook that transfer case up to that new transmission. I just don't want to, I got to figure everything out before I'm willing to commit to that. But I'm sure that's coming. And, like I said, there's always little odd ends you can tinker with and do. But all in all, man, it was a fun build, and it took time. It was about 5 years. And I had some good coaches, man. I had some old hot rod guys that would come around, and they always want to know kind of what I've done to it. And one guy that's actually just recently died, Randy Dearman, lived around here, and, man, he was a four-wheel drive guru. And, man, he would come by, and he was probably the biggest help to me. Because, when you're building something like that, at the end, the kicker is always when it gets drivable. That's where a lot of people give up on the build. They start driving it. And he kept me patient. And that was the key to really, I think, getting the product that I've got today. Is the first time I drove it down the road was to a car show. So that gives you an idea. And he helped me kind of just stay grounded with it. And he said, hey, man, you've waited this long. There ain't no need in getting in a hurry now. So and he was correct. So I definitely appreciated his advice and all the advice of several others. I mean, there's so many people to thank that helped me throughout the way or done something for me or whatever. There's some sentimental value in that too, because two of the ones that really played a part probably in helping me, with either advice or just whatever, have passed away since building the truck. So, there's several things that kind of hold some sentimental value there.
Well, that's really neat. I mean, obviously staying patient really took it to that next level. I mean, it's a beautiful build. You did a great job with it, and I can't thank you enough for sharing your story.
Well, man, I appreciate you listening. I know I don't know how long we stay on the phone, a good while, but man, it was fun. And man, I just encourage you and all the others out there, man, you stay at it, man. It tickles me to see these trucks on Instagram and the popularity that is there for them and the passion for these trucks. And I hope we'll probably build another one. There's another one or two out there I would like to get my hands on that would have a little value to me to actually have because they belong to somebody that meant something to me. So hopefully in the near future we'll get a handful of them. You can always check us out on Instagram or Facebook. We try to post some stuff as we go along and kind of go from there.
Hey, while we're on that, why don't you tell people where they can find you on Instagram and give you a follow?
Man, yeah. Hey, you can check me out at Body Shop Boy on Instagram, and we try to post a good bit if we can. I don't have probably as many pictures of my green truck as I need to have on there, but I try to do a little better with that, trying to slow down enough to throw some stuff. But you can check me out on Instagram, like I said, at Body Shop Boy.
Fantastic. Well, Shan, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on the podcast, and hopefully we can circle back around and do this again.
Man, I would love to. And like I said, hey, keep up the good work. I want you to know I appreciate what you're doing and having this podcast because, I try to tell as many people in my area about it as I can because it's a great thing. And I think real true car guys, truck guys, they enjoy hearing this kind of stuff and, knowing what everybody else is doing. And, sometimes maybe all somebody needs is just a little story to kind of spark their fire and maybe get that, what they got, back up and going and down the road again,
Yeah, get them excited about the build. And I mean, I know I love listening to it when I'm out in the garage working. And so, just in general. So I really appreciate that support. Thank you very much.
Man, yeah, you keep it up. And next time, just holler back at me. We'd love to do it again sometime.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you again.
All right, bud. I appreciate it.
It's really stories like that drive the point home of why we're all so passionate about, these old Ford trucks. It could be bump sides, slicks, dent sides. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a passion and there's a reason behind the passion. So, really want to thank Shan for coming on the podcast. Appreciate him sharing his story. If you guys want to check out what he's got going on Instagram, it's at Body Shop Boy. Go give him a follow, show him some love, and hey, we'll catch you guys next time.